Good morning, class. This is Mr. DeVoe-Peterson. Let's look at what we have for week 3. You got through week 2. That was a big week. You had 4 chapters in Tech in Action. You had 4 chapters in Microsoft Word. And today you're going to have, for this week, you're going to have 4 chapters now in Tech in Action, 4 new chapters, and 4 chapters in a new program, Spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel, which is really important to understand. It's one of the top 10 skills employers want you to have. So again, a busy week, just like last week, but if you get through this week, next week and the week following that, weeks 4 and 5 are easier. They slow down. Instead of 4 chapters in an application, you only have two. And instead of 4 chapters in your Tech in Action ebook, you only have two. So it should be easier. So with that, hopefully that's encouraging. Let me share my screen with you. I'm going to start. I'm in, Fresno City College, the Canvas site, and I'm just going to go from top to bottom here. We'll end up with the quizzes here from the chapters that we get to, chapters 3, 7, 12, and 13. Surprisingly, 3 and 7 go together. Why they're separate, I don't know, but that's okay. We're going to start with getting into Microsoft Excel. After that, I'll show it to you. After that, we'll do the hands-on test. And then with the ebook, then you have, accompanying that, you have your narrated PowerPoints for each chapter, 3, 7, 12, and 13. You have the, study guide questions, which are all the quiz questions I can ask, and then you'll take the quiz. So starting with Microsoft Excel, what will you learn? So here's kind of an overview, a table of contents for each of the chapters. You start by entering text and doing spell check. You'll do autofill and complete a sequence. For instance, if you were to do in a series of numbers for rows, you do 1, 2, 3. You might highlight those 1 and 2 and just drag down, and it'll fill the remaining rows. It'll number for you, which is kind of nice. And the big part of Excel is you're using Excel to do the heavy lifting. You'll put in labels and values, right? And for instance, in an expense report, you would put in expense items like rent, utilities, food, gas, insurance. Those are labels. Then you would put with that numbers to represent those expense items, right? Those are your inputs. And what you'll let Excel do is the heavy lifting. It'll add them up. It'll sum them. It'll subtract the total income from total expenses and give you a balance and project that out over 12 months and let you see where you'll end up with extra money for that vacation or that purchase you wish to make. So it's great for budgeting. Excel is very powerful for analyzing numbers. It has saved so much time for accountants and budget management folks to let Excel do the heavy lifting, let it do the math. And the way we do it is with formulas and functions. So you'll learn that in Excel. All right, so cell formulas, we're getting into columns, inserting. For chapter 2, we'll learn about relative and absolute reference, um, mixed references, sum and average and median, minimum, max, count, X lookups. Those are all powerful, heavy lifting formulas and functions, right? Okay, we'll do a charting, which is really great because images really tell a picture, be it a pie chart to show percentages of expenses or a line graph to show as like stock market tickers to show the market's going up, the market's going down. The graph shows that really nice. Doing charting, and manipulating the data in the chart. And then we end up with chapter 4. All right, so those 4 chapters in Excel, just like in Word. You'll freeze columns and rows. You'll learn how to do page breaks for formatting your reports, do titles, adding a records, creating a table in Excel, removing duplicate rows. These are all good things that you can do in Excel. So with that, now we know Excel is very handy, it's very powerful. You'll use it probably at work, and if not there, also you'll use it at home. It's a very powerful tool. Let's get into Microsoft Excel. Let's open up a window, and I probably should have done this. Hold on. I didn't set this up ahead of time. So let me launch it. We'll see if this works. Let me launch it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to minimize it. You probably can't see any of these pages yet, but you will in a minute. I may have to reselect it. We'll see if this works. So I'm going to stop sharing for the moment and I'm going to reshare and see if I can see this. Okay, so you should see the Excel spreadsheet right now. It should be sharing properly. Well, hopefully, if not, I'm going to be redoing this video. All right, so this is the spreadsheet. And let's see, here are the directions at the bottom. Type, type souvenir program in cell 8-8. All right, so um, this is column A, B, C, D, so forth, as you see. You know, after you get to Z, you exhaust the 26 letters, then we duplicate the letters as A, B, A, C, and so forth. And then it goes to C, A, C, B. So it continues on. So we want to go to column A and we want to do row 8. So in this cell, we're going to type souvenir program. And there it is. And in cell 9 and cell A9, press the enter key. Type. Okay. Uh, type CD. Oh, okay. Hold on. I didn't see the whole part of that. Soundtrack. Oh, let's see. I didn't spell that too well. Soundtrack. See, I still don't think that's right. Well, I'm typing behind a microphone, so nope. I did see it's going to give me a couple tries here. Let's see. There we go. Now I was able to do it. Select A1. So the instructions continue, right? And if I can scroll this and see. And A1, then spell check the worksheet. So, okay, so I'm going to go up to here. I'm going to spell check. Now, if I don't know how to do any of this, just as a reminder, these are the learning aids, right? And you can, watch the video or read instructions or practice. So just remember to do that. All right. There are 22 steps in this one. There's small steps, so there's quite a few. If I show this, if I show view all, I think you should be able to see these are all the things I'm going to do in chapter 1. Do a header, increase indents, copy and paste. Those are all good things. When I'm done, I'm going to submit. If I don't have time to finish it during the time I allocated to start it, I'm going to save for later. I'm going to go ahead and submit it and see what a failing grade I get because I just did partially 1 of 22 and I'm not sure if it's going to show it to you. We'll see. I opened this in a new screen, so it's probably not. So I'm going to close that out. That's Excel. You're going to go through and do the training, which has learning aids, and do the assessment. So in this case, for the assessment in cell A8, they would have me type something different. But nonetheless, I would enter a label. I would enter information. And then I would continue to chapter 2, 3, and 4, and so on. Allocate time for this. You can't wait till Saturday to get started. Remember, this is a 6-week class, so you got to get going kind of quick on this. Then we do the lab test. So once we click on this, I think I put it, I lost it. Okay, I'm going to see if I can open up the lab test. I'm not sure. I'm getting a pop-up screen. You're probably not going to see that. So I won't go into that. It's just like Word. Instead of Word, you're going to download files for Microsoft Excel. You're going to do the instruction sheet. And let's see, where is the instruction sheet? Did I put it here? All right. I may have to. I didn't open up everything ahead of time. So shame on me. Let's go into the instruction sheet for Excel. Uh, open with, I'm not sure if you're able to see this, but I'm opening Excel in a tab. And then I'm going to tell, Zoom I want to open that and share that file. Hopefully you see this. And that should still be selected. This is the instruction sheet for Excel. You would download this and print it. You would download the starting file and then you would open that on your desktop and you would work on it with Microsoft Excel installed on your computer. So these are the steps. There are 26. Now, where, let me stop sharing for a second. Let me reselect a form for you to see. No, let's go to here. Let's reselect a form. Let's see if I can share the screen. I'm going to open it up. Hopefully, this caught up with me. Um, you would come down here and you would download this right from this link here. This is the Excel hands-on lab test, right? We went into Excel. We did the 4 chapters, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Before you do the Excel hands-on test, this is another tour of how to do a hands-on test. And this is the video of me. Whoops. I jumped into, um, oh, that might be the wrong one. This should be Excel. Yep, I'm going to fix that link. This should be a link to the Excel hands-on test. Didn't that what we do word last week in week 2? Okay, this is a video. When you get to here, this will be a video on how to do the Excel hands-on test. And this is me walking through about 60 to 70% of it. I do quite a bit of it. There's some calculations where you're multiplying and getting sums and things like that, doing averages and copy and pasting and adding tabs. Do look at that before you start the Excel hands-on test. I'll fix that. Okay, also you have here the narrated PowerPoints for the 4 chapters you're going to read, chapters 3, 7, 12, and 13. And I did open up one of them here. Let's see if I can go to the table of contents and come down to chapter 3. So this is using the internet. And let's see, making the most of web's resources. You know, many of you are quite experienced at this, I've understood. So let's collaborating and communicating on the web. Maybe there's some links here that'll be good. Social networking. I know we know about that. So here's a link. People use the internet to communicate and share information. Yes, yes, yes. Where are some other test question answers? Oh, bits and bytes, very good, talking about that. Let's go into blogs. I know hopefully some of you have seen blogs before. It's a personal log or a journey information instead of a whole website, kind of a diary type online. Microblogs, podcasts, a lot of the stuff you see on YouTube, you'll see podcasts, and they have it's just a nice way to put that out there, and people go to one central place and they get the information. Real simple syndication, not as big as it used to be. It's for broadcasting information on the web, basically. You don't see it as often as we used to. Webcasts, more common. You see a lot of that stuff on YouTube. And email you're familiar with. Okay, let's now go to, that's chapter 3. And let's go to chapter 7. You know, I think I put 13 with this. This is behind the scenes of how the internet works, all right? Internet identity. This is more of a deeper dive of how we actually, look for things. Chapter 3 is kind of an overview of using the internet kind of at a high level. Chapter 13 digs a little deeper and talks about IP addresses, and that's the unique address that the computers use to identify a website. That's what that's for. ICANN for signing and keeping track of all the names of websites. And Internet Protocol, IP4, and there's IP6. Here it is down here. That's the protocol for giving unique addresses on the internet. A little bit of how hexadecimal works, and that's probably a quiz question. 16 possible values, 0 through 9, A through F. What else here? Static addresses, dynamic. Addresses are IP addresses that are assigned by ICANN to like websites and things like that. Your address for your internet connection from home, those are dynamic. They get assigned from the internet service provider to your system. You get a lease for like a week, and then it expires, and then you get a new lease for that IP address. And for that reason, you couldn't really host a website on your personal computer at home with an internet service provider. There's some things you'd have to do to make that static. And what else? What else? Let's see. What am I missing? Internet cache. Those are things that are saved on your system from the websites you've gone to. Okay. Well, let's go back. So here's your book. It's important to go through it and read it, not just do the narrated PowerPoints. So I know that's handy. It's a summary, it's an overview of the chapters. Um, let's go to 7. Let's go to chapter 7. And that is right here. We get into networking. All right. That's a little more technical. And it introduces the wireless networking and talks about some information, how that works and coverage for access points and things like that. So anything on the network is considered a node, basically. Oh, here it is right here. Node. There it is. But a network is two or more computers or devices connected together. And why do we do a network? Now, we want to probably access information and share information. It's very convenient. Prior to networks, businesses used to, well, back in the old days, save things on floppy disk, and they would, hand it to a person and from one desk to another when they needed a copy of those files, which is why they call the sneaker net. Quite interesting. Networks came into their full benefit when the cost came down for using networks and the cost of cabling came down for networks and how computers were connected with the, different topologies instead of bus, a star topology. So you could easily add or take away a computer from a network without bringing the whole network down, which is what would happen with the initial bus topology for networks and manufacturing plants and so forth. It really came into its full benefit when that happened, right? Let's see what else. Networking is kind of exciting. We talk about data transfer rates and throughput, right? And what's the difference? Data transfer rate, bandwidth, maximum speed, right? The data can transfer, but throughput is what you're going to actually experience, right? It's usually less than, bandwidth because the more people on the network, it slows down. It's a scarce resource. It gets used up with the more users that are on it. What else? Network architecture. These are quiz questions, personal area networks, local area, home area, which is something that's kind of new in the last 3 to 6 years. We never used to call it that, but now we do. It's become bigger and bigger. Metropolitan would be the city, right? But you might get a quiz question. For instance, what is the largest network? Well, it would be the wide area network, right? That would be the biggest, not personal. Personal would be like you having Bluetooth AirPods in and your cell phone. That's a personal network. All right, so here's the example of them right here. Good picture, just to illustrate all that. All right, networking, what else? We talk about Ethernet. We get a little technical here. Yeah, we learn about Wi-Fi. We got Wi-Fi 6 now, which is a standard. We have different speeds of networks. We have 2.4, which was one of the original speeds. It can go quite a far distance, and we have 5 gigahertz, which is much faster. So, what else? Let's see, what else? What did I not go through? I didn't do 12. All right, so let's go to chapter 12. Where are you, chapter 12? Let's get rid of 7 and go to 12. And this takes a deeper dive in the network and the business world, right? And let's jump down here. So it introduces the concept of client base versus uh, 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 share. Let's see, let me find it here. Network advantages of business networks. Okay, well, facilitate knowledge sharing, enable resource sharing, enhance communication. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but there is a cost in maintaining the network. And I think they probably get into that at some point here. Client server base, which is the most common for a business. And here we're getting into the disadvantages, the network administrator. So there's the cost. And a small business can't afford to have a big IT team to manage that. So usually they pay for services to maintain their network. And this goes with chapter 7, of course, where we start with networking. There's centralized and decentralized networks, client server. Let's see what else. What are some big concepts here? this is showing you a small client server network, right? And in this case, there's a server that feeds information to the connected devices. So, okay, what else? Chapter 7. Okay, we know about that. We've covered chapter 7. Local area network, a little repetition here from wide area network. All right, the big difference in the two. Uh, what are the key components for a client server network? Okay, and what else? Where's the summary? Let's take a look at that. Chapter review. Learning outcomes, right? Advantages and disadvantages of the network, because we make sure we know that. Difference between client server and peer-to-peer. Well, you'll see anytime you have, I would say, more than 10 computers in a network for a business or home, yet it's hard to manage the local logons for each of the individual computers. And that's where it becomes an advantage to the client server network where server maintains all the user logons for whichever computer they log on in the business. And in companies, they're going to have, let's say, a tax preparation company or a medical office. They're going to have computers up front, for front office type functionality, which doesn't hold the information. It's usually put in a server in the back room, blocked and secured, and that's what the benefit of a client server network. So if a business gets robbed, a smash and grab to the window, and they grab the computer, well, they're not getting the information. They're getting the computer. The information is stored on the server. So there's a big advantages for client server networks in businesses, and not so much for home. For home, we use peer-to-peer networks. 'Cause it's just convenient. We maybe have two or three computers. We don't have the need for a separate dedicated server to manage resources for just two or three people. And there's the cost associated with that. And server software costs more money. So that's kind of a big overview of this chapter. Chapter 12 kind of gets a little technical, but it lets you understand a little bit why a business would use a client server network because of the advantages are huge, even though there's some costs associated with it. But peer-to-peer for everybody else, easy to use. So that's your ebook. Let's come back here. So after getting into these four chapters, right? 3, 7, 12, and 13, look at some of these study guide questions, right? Let's go to chapter 3. Let's see if I can open it up in window. And yeah, I know this is this is a tough week. I get it. All right, so here's an example. So I hope you look at these each time before you take the quizzes. Using the internet, making the most of the web's resources. Chapter 3, the internet is, well, what is it? An internal communication system for businesses? Nope. A communication system for the U.S. Navy? Nope. The same as the World Wide Web? The internet is a large network of networks. Yeah, I would say it's probably D, a large network of networks. Now, what you could do is you could look up these large network, World Wide Web, and see if that correlates to what the internet is. All right, so there's how many are there here? I have 37 multiple choice questions. There's voice uh, over. Yeah, I like that. Here, well, voice over internet protocol. There it is. There's the answer. Now, true, false, I have, probably a dozen more of those. And you're going to get 20 multiple choice and 5 true, false for each chapter quiz question. The internet was developed to ensure faster delivery of communication such as email. No, that wasn't the main reason why it was developed. Emails are completely private. No, it's not. So some of these are statements that are either true or false. That's how you would look at that. Okay, so let me go back and see if I can jump back where I need to be. All right, so week 3. Again, I'll fix that. That'll be my Excel hands-on test by the time you get there. So we showed you the 4 chapters in Excel. Well, I showed you 1 chapter, but I went over the outline for what's covered in each of the 4 chapters of Excel, which is really a powerful program. And I encourage you, don't wait till Saturday to start. Um, we have the hands-on Excel test. We have the narrated PowerPoints. We have tech in action, and we have quizzes. And I think, let me stop sharing. I think someone's banging on my door. All right. If you have questions, send me an email. We'll hope to see you on the net. All right. Bye for now.